I believe that talent is normally distributed, that opportunity is not. So it's not that surprising to me. It's not that crazy to suggest you put a big door on the high street that says opportunity inside, you are welcome. Guess what? Incredible businesses turn up.
Welcome back to Brave Ideas, where we chat with the leaders in commercial real estate to answer all questions space as a service and help office real estate reposition to meet the evolving demand for the future of work. If you're an investor, fund manager, developer, landlord, operator, property manager, agent or broker, hit that subscribe button. And if you prefer to watch or join the newsletter, head over to braveideas.media. I'm your host, Caleb Parker, and this is episode 6 of season 16. In this episode, I'm joined by Patch founder, Freddie Fforde, and the head of growth for Patch, Andy Smith. We recorded this conversation right here inside the Mute showroom in Clerkenwell, London, with my co-host, Gary Helm, helping us dig into the property and design side of this story. Patch operates work near home spaces in locations including Chelmsford, Twickenham, Bournemouth, York, and Gloucester, with an ambition to build a nationwide network of neighborhood hubs in smaller cities and towns across the United Kingdom. In this episode, we get into why Patch is focused on smaller cities and towns where millions of people and thousands of small businesses are still underserved by premium flex workplaces. Freddie shares how Patch thinks about opportunity, why they believe talent is normally distributed but opportunity is not, and how this brand is trying to rebalance that on local high streets. We've dived deep into how Patch selects buildings from former department stores and libraries to heritage warehouses and new placemaking schemes, as well as how their creative director, Paloma, adapts the design language to each local context while still building the recognizable brand that is Patch. We go on to unpack the work near home business model, including how Patch approaches CapEx and OpEx, pricing and occupancy in these markets, and the mixed use value they create for landlords when they reactivate tired retail and department store assets. Now, I don't want to give away all the juicy details. You got to listen to the full show for that. But you need to tune in, especially to hear Freddie talk about the hardest parts of this journey so far. Before we transition to this episode, listen to this special message. If you're a flex operator still juggling spreadsheets and manual rate sheets, stop. You don't need to be a wizard to outsmart the big guys. You just need FlexSpace AI. It's your AI-powered revenue team that never sleeps, optimizing prices, automating marketing, and filling your space while you focus on your members. No burnout, no guesswork, no what-if tabs at 2 a.m. With FlexSpace AI, your building works as smart as you do. Now head over to flexspace.ai/brave and start growing your revenue today. Now, without further ado, let's head over to the podcast studio with Freddie, Andy, and Gary. Welcome to Brave Ideas, Freddie.
Hi, Caleb.
This is long overdue, and welcome to Brave Ideas, Andy. Thanks for joining us. Obviously, Gary's here as our co-host today. We're in the Mute showroom in Clerkenwell. I want to dive into everything Patch, and I think often co-working is limited to the bigger cities. We bring an amazing experience to customers that walk in our doors in London, across the UK, and other cities around the world. But the smaller cities often get overlooked, and I think what you guys are doing is really cool. But what I wanted to ask you, Freddie, is why? Why the smaller cities?
Well, thank you very much for having me. And I think for your listeners, I want to explain that the world that we know in co-working is so much more varied and more interesting than we already even think, because actually the vast majority of people don't live in major cities, and the vast majority of people have yet to discover the kind of experiences that we all know and your listeners know. So I hope over the course of this podcast I can kind of answer your question and interest your listeners. So your question is, why are we doing it in smaller locations? And in a very simple word, the answer is opportunity. We're a very impact-led, socially minded business. We're still a business. I still think the opportunity for what we can do is also one of scale. Hundreds of locations is really the target over time if we can get there. But if I come back to that word opportunity, there's somewhere around 5 million SMEs, maybe 10 to 15 million working professionals in the cities that you may have heard of but never been to. So most kind of people in the office and commercial world can get to kind of London, Manchester, Birmingham, they get to Leeds, Bristol, and they kind of forget what comes next. And there's a long list of places like the places that we operate: Bournemouth, York, soon Gloucester, and hundreds like it. So that's what we exist to do, is to bring the opportunity that the workspace experience reflects, and to put that opportunity on every high street for millions of people, millions of businesses who have yet to experience it.
Freddie, I think that's awesome. And as someone who is a strong believer in entrepreneurship and the impact that entrepreneurs around the world bring to our world to improve it, I think the more that flex comes into an area, the more innovation happens, the more jobs get created, the better the economy becomes. So I love it. And I love the opportunity that you're bringing to these smaller cities. You must get like the city councils welcoming you with open arms.
Yeah, I think it's a common misinterpretation that when I talk about the scale of the opportunity and the fact that we're an impact, a business focused on opportunity, that somehow that leans us to being charitable or kind of publicly funded in some way. I want to be very clear that, you know, in the same way that Pure Gym brought low-cost gyms to hundreds, I think about 500 locations in the country, in the same way that Waterstones have brought book reading to, you know, book buying and the experience you get going into Waterstones, so 450 locations around the country. That's the brand that we want to be in our world. So yes, we do get a very positive response from councils, but I would say more broadly from local communities. And as I'm sure we'll come on to, our product specifically responds to those contexts. And we're not operating in CBD style commute in, commute out, you know, go to your office and go home kind of environments. We're operating in the aegis of what we call the work near home world, which is on your high street, in your neighborhood, in a building that you might recognize or know from its former use. We're in libraries and former Debenhams and such, but also one that empowers and enables that local population to engage in childcare pickups, or what do we have? Cycling clubs and cinema clubs and, you know, library of things and so on. So yes, we're well received by councils. I think that is a reflection of being more broadly received by communities as offering something that is really missing, which is a place of convention, a place that people can come together on the high street. Yes, the workspace, but as I've said, I'm sure we'll cover in more detail the broader variety of needs that come from having faith again in your high street. And there's a whole load of provision that we have that goes far, far beyond workspace to serve that need.
I have so many directions to take. I've got so many questions. I can't even probably fit them all into this episode today. But, you know, episode 1 this season, we talked about shifting from CapEx to OpEx, from investing in marble statues in lobbies to OpEx of people delivering hospitality and programming and curating community. I want to touch on that, but we can't forget about the CapEx either. And often the reason that smaller cities, in my experience, the reason they get overlooked is because the assumption is that the income, the revenue cannot sustain the CapEx.
Yeah.
And so how are you addressing that?
There's a few angles here. I think when you think about our consumer, you know, and I say this as somebody who was born and bred in London. So my best friends are in London. Until very recently, I lived in London, as I have for, you know, all my life. You know, there is actually a very diverse range of consumers who live outside of London in all of the cities that, as I said, you've probably heard of but never been to. And guess what? They have preferences, and some of those preferences include quality, and they have spending power. And I think it's a simplification to overlook everywhere outside of London from a price point. You know, we are offering, you know, we think we're really one of the few, probably in our neighborhood context, the only quality premium offer. And so we're able to deliver a kind of building income that supports the CapEx, pays it back through rent or loans, or, you know, however else we're financing it. So that's kind of one part of the answer. I think the other part of the answer is, as has been widely covered, so many of our high streets and neighborhoods are really struggling. You know, the high street used to be kind of so long, and now it's about half that size. So who is coming in to rescue those assets? And we're a huge part of the answer for developers in particular. And I think landlords are really waking up now to our contribution as part of typically a mixed-use environment where we might take 15 to 20,000 square feet of, let's say, a former Debenhams, as we've done in Bournemouth, and we're looking at similar schemes elsewhere. And actually, not only can we deliver a great return on that specific part of the building that we're operating, but, you know, as you and your listeners know, we drive huge placemaking value and ultimately lift the value of the whole building, becoming the most exciting place in town.
Gary, I think you have some questions here.
Guys, it's great to meet you both. It's really to hear what people are doing away from the major hubs that we think of. All the years I've been doing this, we've thought about the hub and spoke model. So we've talked about a major hub and then spokes offshooting around the country. But what are you doing with property, how are you making what might be deemed rundown property very desirable very quickly and in a financially viable manner?
So every building, every community is different. But in short, we tend to take buildings that have a sense of public memory. Now, that doesn't mean they need to be old, but we have kind of Art Deco buildings. We have former breweries. We also take some new buildings that are part of a very kind of vivid placemaking reimagination as is happening in Gloucester. But the point is they all have identity. People know where they are. And I think that carries a huge amount of goodwill for the brand. So we don't, because we are trying to operate a place that is publicly accessible as much as it is accessible to members, I think that does a lot of the work to bring people in and drive curiosity, which is another way of saying we don't have to create the most expensive, extraordinary, life-changing design, because actually we're leaning on so many other things that are important to people around, as I say, the position of that building within a particular community. That said, our creative director, Paloma, who's not here, was, amongst other things, part of the founding team of an architect studio called Assemble, which won the Turner Prize in 2015, which is to say she and we as a brand are very creative about responding to that building's specific context that it sits in. So we don't have a one-size-fits-all approach. We do work with communities. We do work with local people. And because of Paloma's specific design insights, we're able to have a very unique and often not outrageously expensive approach that delivers what is still a premium product.
That's really great to hear, because what we often find, studies have proved this, and some partners and some experts we work with say that, more than half of the building stock that is demolished is because it's not fit for purpose. If we can re-energize, change the purpose, then it's great that you're taking these landmark buildings that may not be deemed landmarks as such, but they're a heart of the community, aren't they? And re-energizing and bringing the people back into much needed, vibrant high street communities.
That's, to me, it's interesting as you roll out a brand, how you ensure that your brand guidelines are delivered in every single site. You create a network effect while also catering to the local community, to the building, and customizing it to bring out that identity you talk about. Andy, from your perspective, how does that then attract customers? How do you ensure what you're delivering as a product drives demand and brings the customers in?
Yeah, the design element is absolutely core to how we initiate demand and excitement around Patch opening in a location. So initially, I can speak from my experience as a member of Patch before becoming part of the team, but I was a member down in our Twickenham site. There's a building that's been there a long time, hoardings up, nothing's been going on for years, and then suddenly this thing is happening. And then when we finally open the doors and people can see the level of change that we've achieved in that area, it's incredibly impactful. And what you find is there's a real pride amongst our members that they work in this space that is really a step on from what was there previously. Another great example, our York site is in a beautiful old bonding warehouse down on the river. And everyone in York knew the building, but no one, for a few years, no one had been in the building. So you have this moment where people are suddenly coming into the space, and we've completely lifted the space in the same way that, people are incredibly proud of bringing the people around to their house when they've redone their kitchen, right? You've got that same impact. So we start there, but then to continue that, we make sure that our buildings feel very publicly accessible. So we talk about this idea of acting as a town hall. On all of our buildings, like the space on the ground floor is publicly accessible. Could be a cafe, could be event space. Just also a brilliant team who will welcome you.
Just on that, are you getting footfall when people are walking by? They feel like it just sort of pulls them in.
That's exactly right. So we probably take a slightly different view. We would love everybody in our locations, our neighbourhoods, to be aware of Patch, have a positive view of Patch. Whether that's because they just popped in to meet the reception team, been in for a coffee, been to an event, that is incredibly valuable to us. Over time, obviously, that converts into kind of high value memberships, but actually, we're not chasing that. What's important for us is to be really credible in the local area.
Now, I'm putting my investor hat on because we do have investors in the audience. And so if you're the cafe, what I'm hearing, if it is a cafe that's got footfall coming in, are you generating revenue from that, from external, from like the local community then?
So I think Andy has talked to how we attract demand because we drive a sense of loyalty and relevant feel to, we've arrived and, our logo represents the building comes to life and people feel like we're part of the community. But I think your question again exposes how I think differently we're approaching this. So we don't think about the ground floor directly only in terms of what it contributes in terms of revenue. So yes, we have a cafe with a local partner. All of our suppliers are local. There's really strong signaling messaging there. But we also have, and that doesn't really drive any material income for us. But we also have like a kids play corner, which I can tell you drives zero material income for us. We also have things like Library of Things, where you can borrow high quality electrical goods to your home. We have everything from the crochet club to a Pilates group through to there's a citizens assembly being run by the council in Bournemouth. And what this all adds up to is a totally different idea for what our spaces are. And we don't really think about ourselves really as flexible space, co-working. I mean, those are some of the products that we offer. We really think about our kind of work near home concept as being representing all of life in a building. So whether you're 6 years old or 60 years old, morning, noon, and night, there should be something for you at Patch. Now, tying this back to your investor question, this all sounds lovely, but what's the point? What's the bottom line? Because we return value to the community, we trade that and we put a lot out there for people. We have hundreds of events happening every month, and a lot of them aren't costing anything. But what it buys in return, and I think this is a fair trade that people understand and are willing to engage in, is loyalty, is trust, and it's part of the premium product. So we know that we generate higher occupancy and higher income as a result of the sum of its parts that we're offering. And if you were to take out, say, the library stand or the little retail makers market that we have on the ground floor and swap it out for another anodyne meeting room or another office, you've lost the point. And then Patch as a brand concept falls away. But because we are doing something that is radically different, that combines the town hall with the co-work space, it drives a premium overall. And we see it. We see it in what we know that our nearest competitors, as far as you could think of them in that way. I mean, literally in some cases next door to us, some as low as half the price, but half the occupancy of us. Because if you go into the context of a local town, I mean, if your listeners just think about where you're from, and another brand turns up and just starts selling the same white box that everyone else is selling, and you have someone else who turns up and actually pays it forward, who gives out to local charities, gives out local space, and fundamentally brings confidence and opportunity, that word again, into your high street. Guess where it is you're going to want to invest your time, your money, and your energy. And we're seeing it now in Gloucester. I mean, it's an incredible place. We've turned up and people are falling over themselves because towns, locations, cities, communities are full of talented and interesting creative people. We didn't create that. But actually, you put a stake in the ground and say, this is a place for you. You are welcome. Collectively, let's all coordinate around what we think of as a lighthouse for local life. Amazing things happening. And we're just seeing it again in Gloucester, from the cathedral to the council to local businesses. All we're doing is acting as that convener, that host. The talent is already there, and it just drives the most extraordinary interest and results.
I like you said we didn't create that, and I was waiting for you to say, but we curate that, and that's what you're doing. It goes back into the programming of creating this experience, curating the community that's there, giving them opportunities to connect with each other, and do business and grow.
Yeah, and not just do business, but also send a really positive message about, like, productively I can achieve the thing I need to achieve. I need a room with AV, I get the room with AV, right? So there's like a functional need that's met. But what we provide that is fundamentally different is a reason to believe in doing it there in your city, in your town. A lot of the places that we've visited and that we've opened up are often defined by their proximity to somewhere else. I remember when we opened our first location in Chelmsford, it was brilliant. One of the first people I met said, "Oh, Chelmsford's wonderful. It's only 30 minutes from London." And I just responded to say, well, it's 0 minutes from Chelmsford. So why are we not focusing on the bigger idea here? And the bigger idea here is that there are 140,000 people in Chelmsford. I believe that talent is normally distributed, that opportunity is not. So it's not that surprising to me. It's not that crazy to suggest you put a big door on the high street that says opportunity inside, you are welcome, which is effectively what we do. I mean, not literally, but that is what our brand stands for. Guess what? Incredible businesses turn up, lawyers, accountants, tech firms, high growth, like low growth, like just such a variety of different activities that come to the front door. And every single time we hear the same thing, which is, oh, my town, my city, my high street, my neighborhood really needs one of these. So we're just responding to a human need.
I love it. You're giving me chill bumps over here because you mentioned the word brand. And I think you're describing everything that builds a brand. You put your values front and center. You're communicating this. You're doing it out of passion and to make an impact on these local communities. And that's what your brand becomes known for. And that's how you're going to scale it. I love this.
In the variety of landscapes that you work in, different cities, different towns, are you noticing any similarities from your consumers?
So I think there's two parts to that. There are threads that run through all of our sites, and then we're also starting to see a couple of different segments emerge. So in terms of those threads, the people that come to us are the people that really believe in their town, and they want to work near home. That works for them. They've been looking for help to do that in a really positive way. Our co-working product is probably sort of our most disruptive element. 80% of those who are working in our co-working spaces were working at home before they came to us. So they've taken a decision, whether it's their money, it tends to be their own money, or their employer's money, to invest in working in a new location. This sense of investing in something in your town, being part of a community that's happening within your town, that is a thread that certainly runs through what we're doing. Where we're starting to see a couple of different segments emerge is our sites are at the moment broadly falling into two categories. There are ones which sit right geographically in the center of our target audience, and we are really there to be a convenient part of their lifestyle. So drop the kids off at nursery, come in and work, be getting their work done, pop out, see a friend at lunchtime, really kind of intrinsically close. Those people are often 20 minutes walk away max. The second segment we're starting to see emerge is when our members are slightly further dispersed, so then we're becoming a hub and people are really kind of then traveling in. And that's, for me, that second one is sometimes the more exciting piece, because that's when we are unlocking these existing communities that might exist over a larger town. I think Bournemouth for us is a really, really strong example of that. We are becoming a hub within Bournemouth. People are proactively traveling into it because they share the values of other members. And then the thread that really runs through our key occupants, our private office users who really kind of underpin our spaces, is that they tend to be ambitious local businesses who absolutely see the value in investing in a premium space because they want their teams to want to come in to be part of a community. They can see that we add a lot of value to their overall business culture by essentially creating a benefit for their team members, somewhere to come where they can partake in our events, be on their local high street, meet other co-working members. There is so much informal networking that's happening, so many examples of businesses that have hired from our co-working community, that have used, freelancers who are working there for their services, businesses that have gone from co-working into private office. And we're even now seeing that kind of enterprise style clients are coming in and going, do you know what? Actually, this is the kind of hub I want to create. This helps me have a local identity. I can be a national brand, but I can set up a regional hub by being integrated with this very, very locally integrated operator.
Which is what the big firms do. PwC, they go into a local community, buy a building and say, here, we're here. And so I think a lot of the companies that aren't at PwC level, they still want to do the same thing. You guys are able to provide that for them.
I think that's right. And I think what those businesses struggle with is they can get the postcode, but actually then suddenly whose job is it in that organization to really integrate them with that community? We do that for them.
Gary, I'm doing a time check here. I think you've got a big client call coming up. You need to get out of here.
Gents, thank you so much for coming in. It's been great to be part of this.
Thanks for co-hosting with me. If you're a landlord or flex operator trying to future-proof your building without wasting time or money, this is for you. Mute turns traditional fit-outs on their head. Their Mute modular acoustic rooms can be built, moved, or reused in days, not months. That means lower capex, less waste, and faster returns, all while creating quieter, more beautiful spaces your members actually want to work in. No demolition, no downtime, no sunk cost. Just smarter design that upgrades, reuses, and profits. From static white boxes to dynamic workplaces, head over to mute.design/brave to change the game for offices that never stand still. I want to switch topics here as we wrap this up. This has been great. I'm excited for what Patch is doing. It's been great to watch you grow this, Freddie, over the last several years. But I want to talk about the hard stuff. What has been the hardest part of this journey for you?
So I think there are many challenges, and many of your listeners and other operators will kind of guess what the obvious ones are. I think for us, it's primarily focused on messaging, trying to explain to people that what we do is really important, really relevant, and really scalable in the locations that we go to. I think we kind of sit at the end of a journey that starts with, traditional office is a sector. And then there's this thing called flex and serviced, and that's kind of one step away from the norm. And okay, I think everyone's kind of come on that journey now. But we're doing it in regional cities. Okay, well, that's yet another step further into the unknown. And also we operate this sort of town hall style community-led environment. And I think at some point you lose people on the journey. Now, that's sort of been by design, because not to lose people on that journey, but we always knew that we were going a couple of steps beyond. When I was thinking when I started the business, kind of in the middle of COVID, and I was speaking to people about how their working patterns were changing, it was very obvious that flexible was going to be the future of office. And so it's come to pass. And, stepping aside from the impact and opportunity that I've mentioned that we wanted to build, it felt obvious to me that would then roll out towards the smaller cities and towns that we're focused on. Now, actually, collectively, when you add it up, that is a much larger market, and it is totally underserved. So we always knew that we were going to be a few steps ahead. And the idea would be, as the market caught up, we would already be waiting there, and he said, "Hello, welcome. Now let's do it." I think we still haven't solved the messaging around the mixture of our kind of public-facing and work-facing product. I think that's okay. I think what we're doing is actually quite radical and quite new and interesting and different. And it's going to take time for us to find the language and for people to understand how it's useful to them. But what gives me real confidence is the way in which we are received in those locations is actually unbelievable. Like I actually cannot get my head around just how much of a public service I feel like people do tell us that they are doing. The variety, quality, volume of events, the way that the teams are able to deliver on that, but also feel relevant and fresh. It's amazing. I mean, we have really recreated this third space. And when you see the vibrancy and the quality and the range being delivered in a site, which is harder to show people who are mostly in the property industry, who are mostly based in London, you say, "I'll come to Bournemouth," and they think, "Yeah, sure."
Oh, you're doing a good job of showing people on LinkedIn. I follow your post, and you're demonstrating with the photos what's happening.
When you go and see and experience it, you understand that it is fundamentally different to anything else that's gone before. It's bridging the high street retail of yesterday with the kind of future of flex work tomorrow. And that's where I draw so much confidence, because I know as long as we keep our heads down, as long as we keep delivering the game, then, we're at 6 locations today. We've opened 3 in the last 12 months. I think that velocity is going to increase quite considerably. And as I said, the ambition is to be in 100 plus locations. And, you look at Loungers Group, you look at Pure Gym, you look at Waterstones, all these businesses at different speeds and at different times have reinvented their sector and achieved that scale. There's no reason at all in my mind why I can't see that happening, that it's such a generalizable need that we are serving.
Big ambitions. I like it.
Brave, you might say.
I would say bold and brave. How about that? I think it's hard being a pioneer and innovating in a legacy industry that doesn't want to be disrupted. Trust me, I know. And there's this meme that I often laugh at when you see pioneers with arrows in their back. Keep going. You guys just keep going, because you're on to something big.
That's kind of you to say, but I want to be explicit that I don't think we have invented anything in itself that's radically new. Like, I'm very clear that we stand on the shoulders of giants. I mean, there are people I really, really respect in this industry who have built this long, slow, the hard way. We're standing on the shoulder of those people. So, we didn't invent flex, but what we are doing is combining a different set of ingredients. We didn't invent the communities that we're going into. They already existed. But I think what we're doing is making a different recipe with those core ingredients. I'm really so grateful to so many people who have been part of this. So yeah, we see ourselves very much part of the movement that you and so many others have been supportive of. So yeah, big thank you to everyone who's helping making this happen.
Rising tide lifts all ships, and I think we need more and more people doing what you're doing and talking about it and sharing your best practices, sharing how you've evolved, sharing what doesn't work. So thank you for taking the time to share with us today. Keep going with the brave ideas that you have. What you guys are doing is amazing. Andy, it's cool to hear the story of, coming out from being a customer and a member of Patch to now, being part of the senior team. Thank you for joining us today as well, Andy.
Oh, well, it's been brilliant to join you today. I think the point that I want to finish on, and perhaps I would really just encourage your listeners to do, is come and see us. And we really welcome this community to come and see, get a taste of what we're creating in different towns. So please get in contact if you'd love to have a day with us, use a meeting room, or just come and have a look around. And we want to hear your take on it. So that offer is very much open to all your listeners.
Well, in the show notes, there is a link for your website. We'll put your LinkedIn profiles down there so people can contact you directly. This has been fantastic. Thank you so much. There's so many more questions I have, which we'll have to talk offline or maybe do another podcast one day. Keep going. Good luck. And thank you for tuning in. Until next time, take care of yourself. If you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe at braveideas.media. And I'm actively sourcing buildings for a brand-led hospitality repositioning. If you have a lead, an owner considering a sale, or a partner brief, DM me or reach us at bravecorp.co. And until next time, take care of yourself.